you don't have to remember what it is that's being released. It's actually irrelevant because you're letting it go. This is one of the reasons why it's so beautiful with trauma and PTSD, these overwhelming experiences that you cannot maybe even look at from your conscious mind because it's just too painful. When you do allow the body to tremor, it can take down the emotional charge and ease that off. So you can talk about it. You can remember it without that emotional burden. It's not so overwhelming anymore.
Hello and welcome to the Brilliant Body Podcast, where we explore the art, science, and philosophy of reclaiming somatic intelligence. I'm Mezey, host of the podcast and a body-based practitioner for over 40 years. In this forum, my brilliant guests and I explore what it means to truly be rather than have a body. So join us and reclaim your body's brilliance. My next guest is Siv Jøssang Shields, chiropractor, educator, and co-founder of Neurogenic Integration, The Integrated Human, and Voss Kiropraktorkontor. We're going to have to get her to say it. Chiropractorkontor. Siv has 30 years of experience in clinical practice with many thousands of patients and a deep passion for the mind-body connection. She holds degrees in biology and physiology, is certified in tension and trauma-releasing exercises, TRE, HeartMath, Soma Breath therapy, Soma Breath hypnotherapy, and more. For the past 14 years, Siv has led regular courses and practice sessions in neurogenic tremoring, often blending it with breathwork, music, and other somatic tools. She's also actively involved in developing and evolving TRE alongside its founder, Dr. David Berceli. Siv's background is as rich as it is diverse. She studied meditation and consciousness from childhood, trained in shamanic and Ayurvedic practices, and brings a grounded yet intuitive presence to everything she does. Outside her clinical and teaching work, she's also a beekeeper, hiker, dog trainer, and lover of nature. She found me somehow and asked to be a guest, and I was thrilled to immediately invite her to join us today. So I don't know Siv very well yet. I am going to get to know her alongside you. And I do know a bit more about TRE, which is this fantastic technique that really targets our inhibitions, is how I would put it. And I'll be curious to see how Siv describes it, but allowing us to release the ways that we are constantly holding ourselves as bodies in order not to move, in order not to feel too much, in order not to be socially disruptive, and allows us to really let ourselves as bodies tremble and tremor and move and even emote in ways that has been stuck or even frozen. It's a fantastic method to express, experience, release, liberate, and help us to live that much more fully. So without further ado, my next brilliant guest, Siv Shields. Here we go.
Hey,
Hello. We're doing it, finally.
doing it. It's so cool to meet you.
Likewise, likewise. Before we even get any farther, I want to make sure I pronounced your name correctly when I was just recording your bio. Would you please say your name properly?
My first name is Siv. It's like Eve with an X in front.
And your second name?
My second name is, well, Jøssang would be an easy way to pronounce it for English.
Okay.
And then Shields, of course.
Okay. I'll have to see if my editing skills are sophisticated enough to redo either, but forgive me if I got it a little off.
I'm used to that.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, not good. I'm sorry that you have to deal with that. I'm so glad you're here with me, Siv. And I would just love to hear how you want to start. I've already read your bio, so people have some idea of the work you're doing. We can just begin with what you're particularly excited about the work you're doing. Yeah, what are you really caring about right now and why?
Oh, what a question. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I think this is very exciting. I've, of course, checked you out on the web, and I just fell in love with your energy and the way you present yourself on your platform. And it just resonated with me somehow. They're very similar in many, many ways that we look at things.
Yes.
So that was very, very cool. Well, how did I get into this work in terms of neurogenic tremoring? It depends on where you start. I've always been really interested in the body-mind connection, always, since a very young age, probably because of my fantastic parents. So I started my education in physiology. I was going for a PhD, and I was also at that time meditating a lot. I was doing transcendental meditation. And I realized there that that was not my past. I needed to work directly with people.
Mm-hmm.
And that came to me as I was on a table getting chiropractic treatment through something called network spinal analysis, which is
I know about that work.
more about it. There you go.
Yes.
It's like a very soft technique, and it works with a much deeper aspects of your nervous system. The way I practice today, most of my patients are coming in with pain, and that's their entrance point. But in a network spinal analysis practice, you come in more with your state, I guess you could say. And you work in a more holistic way that I absolutely fell in love with. So that's how I ended up becoming a chiropractor. And in my process of doing that, coming back to Norway, starting a practice together with my husband, who's American, yeah, they're running a practice now for the last 30 years. I got involved in the Chiropractic Association here and was responsible for a few years for the continuing education for the Norwegian chiropractors. And we were going to have a big conference on the autonomic nervous system. That was our theme. And in this process, we invited Dr. David Biselli, who is the founder of trauma and tension releasing exercises, TRE. So I was in the audience, having introduced him, and he was going through and talking about TRE and how it works from the autonomic nervous system, and taking the whole audience, we were probably over 200 people there, through the experience of neurogenic tremoring. And I was laying on the floor going, oh my God,
Yeah.
I have to learn more about this, because it runs so true for me. Also from a network chiropractic point of view, where your body goes into these wave-like motions. This was different, but it has parallels. And that was, I think, about 15 years ago or so. So I dove in and have been teaching this since. Now, together with a colleague of mine, Alex Green, and David Biselli, the founder, we are starting a platform for trying to expand TRE on a even more global scale, making it more easy for people to access it. I'm looking forward to telling you more about it, because for me, I almost want to stand on the rooftops and shout sometimes when I see what this is doing to our nervous systems. That's just kind of like the framework around how I got started with the tension and trauma releasing exercises and neurogenic tremoring.
Yes. So in the intro, which of course you didn't hear, I described a little bit of my experience of TRE probably 10, 12 years ago. I've taken several workshops of it. So I have a bit of, yes, I have a bit of personal experience of it. And from just a layperson's perspective, as well as somebody who's been a body worker for 40 years, I certainly have my own take and gift from what that experience was. The main thing for me being that it is this fabulous way to uninhibit the body, is the simplest way I would say it. And since my thesis in college, and actually my whole life, because I feel so constrained by society and culture, constantly as a body not to move. That is a daily experience, so much so that I go around and even my private life, when no one's looking, feeling that same sense of constraint that I rarely completely break out of. What I love about TRE is it gives people this easy way in to that really, I don't know if you'd use this word, primal state, or this true authentic state where the body just gets to lead and do what is truthful to itself, ourselves, in those minutes of experiencing that. And of course, regulating ourselves in a really profound way. So I just wanted to let you know that's a bit about what I know about it. I don't know if you would agree or disagree with any or all of that, but I'm really curious what your experience and expertise wants to share about it as well.
Well, thank you so much. I love that viewpoint. And I can tell you we are super aligned. Yeah, really, it's kind of amazing because for me, TRE is a force of nature. I would actually like to reframe it a little bit. TRE is like the tremor, and the exercises themselves are just the name of the exercises is just like an entry point into it. And there are many ways of entering into these tremors. But just to first maybe explain what we're talking about. Neurogenic tremoring, as in TRE. Neurogenic means coming from the nervous system, and tremoring is tremoring or shaking. And in our society today, talking about restrictions, tremors are always looked at, from a medical point of view, always looked at as a pathological disease-related symptom. It's not looked at as a healing modality because you always look at it from the disease point of view. So many people experience when they are in a medical situation, if these tremors start, they are brought a blanket or something to cover up because people think they're cold and freezing, or they are asked, oh, please try to slow it down, try to stop it, instead of exploring it as a way of the body releasing tension and restrictions and emotion. So a very common place to experience this is after childbirth. Many women go into tremoring after childbirth and get this advice from the nurse or the doctor, which is kind of sad because in some cultures, primal cultures, this tremoring is a part of the birthing process. They're not considering the birth finished until the mother has finished tremoring. And I think that is just so beautiful. So then you can ask yourself, why is this not more common? Why is there no knowledge about it? And culturally, even in many primal cultures, tremoring is looked at as a sign of weakness or a sign of vulnerability. And that is something that most cultures don't want to show. If you get nervous and your hands start shaking, you put them in your pockets or behind your back to hide it, or on the podium if you're on the stage. You don't want to show that because it's a sign of being weak or vulnerable, or that's how our cultures and society has interpreted it. So that is why I believe it's not very widespread. I mean, why it's kind of, hidden from view, if you want to call it that way. So what we are doing is looking at neurogenic tremors. We know it's not related to a disease. It's the body's natural way of releasing tension after an intense experience, old or new, and good or bad. So it can be an intense experience of something exciting happening and you start to shake. I mean, you win $10 million in the lottery. It could be that you start shaking because it's just such an intense experience,
Or an orgasm.
Orgasm, yes. It's related to, call it, kind of overwhelm in the nervous system that is being dissipated. And
I have so many questions.
yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but oh my God. Well, a few things. One is, as I know it says on your website, you refer to animals' natural capacity to do this, and animals are doing it a lot. And we've seen birds do it when they fly into a window, or they've just been almost demolished by a cat, or, gazelles on the Serengeti who survive, or our dogs who just get in a kerfuffle with another dog on the beach. They do immediately shake off because, again, there's no inhibition about it, nor is there a sense of, you could say, choreography. Whereas humans have this ridiculous belief that their conscious cognitive minds are controlling their bodies and have to tell the body what to do rather than let ourselves as bodies do what we as bodies know to do, which is to, for example, move in these very, what could be viewed as erratic kinds of ways that have this magnificent capacity to give us exactly what we need in order to fully integrate. Because after I was reading your website, I was lying there a few nights ago and I was just letting my arm, which has an old injury in it, just move and tremble and shake a bit. And I slept better after I did that than I have in a really long time, just because that deep intelligence, which I would love for you to talk more about, that the nervous system has its own intelligence. And through that intelligence is conducting, you could say, the motor system, the mobility system to be able to express itself in exactly the ways that needs to happen to come into greater alignment. How does that work?
Well, good question. Neurogenic tremoring is something that is your genetic inheritance. Everyone is born with it. So I usually say it's not something you actually need to learn. It's something your body already knows how to do, and you just need to allow it. It's like opening a door and allowing this to express itself. And we are so intensely controlling ourselves all the time that we're suppressing this from expressing itself. And that's why often I think we're fearful when it comes to the surface. And if the pressure is too much and it just needs to come out and it's pushing itself out, then we get fearful around it because we're not supposed to lose control. We're
Yes.
supposed to stay in control at all times. So from my point of view, call it a human right. It's a human mechanism. It's a mammalian mechanism, actually, since you see it in all mammals. And it arises from the brainstem. It's autonomic. So from that part of your nervous system that controls every little process in your body and is your subconscious mind. I often think about the body as an expression of the subconscious mind.
Absolutely.
And and the tremors are located in the same area. So this is why it can influence and affect not only your physical body, but also how you feel, thinking processes, automatic actions, especially if you put in a framework of an understanding first. But just as a tremoring process, it releases the tension, the stress, the trauma, the old patterns that we hold in our bodies that are stored in our autonomic nervous system, deep in there. So it's not even reaching our conscious mind. Of course, this is like stuck in the deeper layers. And the body starts working on this and letting it go, and it lets go in its own way, not in your chosen way. So this is an allowance of the body's deepest, most ancient healing mechanism, because it comes from the oldest part in our nervous system. So it's this ancient force that is moving through our system and just allowing things to let go in a very natural, gentle way. And the even more beautiful part, it also allows the nervous system to find a different solution on its own. So you go through these periods, if you want to call it, if you look at one tremor session, you go through areas or periods where the body is tremoring really, really fine, like a very fast, it has a rather high frequency to it. And then all of a sudden the body will shift, maybe it'll stop a little bit. And then all of a sudden you'll get these movements and it starts to integrate and look at what did these tremors release and allow the body to connect left, right, upper, lower, and diagonally, depending on what's going on, what's being released. And after it's integrated for a little while, it can go back and start working again. It releases muscle tension, it releases fascia, emotion can come up. I often say the body remembers everything. Even if we don't, our brain, the body remembers. And so when these tremors touch these areas, the body can have a release in terms of emotions or memories coming up. And one of the beautiful things also about this is that you don't have to remember what it is that's being released. It's actually irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because you're letting it go. So you don't have to go through. This is one of the reasons why it's so beautiful with trauma and PTSD, these overwhelming experiences that you cannot maybe even look at from your conscious mind because it's just too painful.
Yeah.
When you do allow the body to tremor, it can take down the emotional charge and kind of ease that off. So you can talk about it. You can remember it without that emotional burden. It's not so overwhelming anymore because you take down the emotional charge from the
Yes.
nervous through the tremoring so that you can talk about it. Then the top-down therapies work much better because you can access the memory and talk about it without having that much chances of re-traumatization. You can look at these things and it's not so overwhelmingly painful. So it's a beautiful combination. It works so well with so many therapies. I use it a lot together with the breath work, for example, with HeartMath, with hypnotherapy, to create different frameworks around it. I use almost always music together with it because it helps you relax into it. It helps you allow the tremor to move through the body in its own natural way. For me, it's also a very feminine power because it's so free and it's kind of wild, I mean, when I say wild, I mean like untamed, if you understand my meaning. It's not like wild in like a crazy way, like you're going nuts, but wild in a free, untamed, natural Mother Earth nature way, in terms of letting go into it, not controlling it, trusting it. And I'm not excluding men by saying this in any way at all. It's just that women are very, very used to being in the hands of nature. We have a menstrual cycle, whether you want to or not. It's there, unless you chemically decide not to do it, but it comes. And then it goes, and then you have ovulation. You go through this process and you don't have a choice. It happens. You get pregnant. The pregnancy goes its course. You can't say, can we just put it on hold for a little while because I got to do something? Birth, hey, you're in for the ride, whether you want to or not. So women are more used to having to let go into these things, these natural rhythms of the body. So looking at this moving through the body, I'm thinking, this is a very feminine, a feminine force of nature. So I think of it as Shakti, if you want to use a Eastern label on it. It's like this beautiful, it's energy because it moves your body. So it just goes through and it's just, yeah. I really get deeply moved when I work with groups and with people watching this.
Oh, I can imagine the room that you hold and get to observe and participate with. Yeah. One of the many things I'm so struck with this beautiful way you just described all of this, Siv, it was gorgeous to listen to, is how much there is in common with two other mentors of mine, the work of Continuum by Emily Conrad, and also Five Rhythms, Gabrielle Roth, and how Emily came to movement as a dancer rather than a chiropractor and a healer. And her focus was more on the element of water. So I found it particularly beautiful that your focus is, as you described it, is more about earth and fire, potentially. I don't know. But she very much had an amazing way to help bodies release into their primal capacity as elemental and as deeply authentic, not just as the human individual that we are, but the cosmic continuum that we are all a part of and so often forget which our bodies can remind us of. And it's so encouraging, particularly in this day and age when it feels like so much separation and that we're kind of losing the the I don't want to say the war, it's a terrible way to put it, but losing the good fight in a way. Sometimes I've been deeply despairing lately. And then when I hear you off in Norway, and I've been in California, and I'm in Europe, and I'm in these different places, and Five Rhythms is happening all over the world, and there are countless practitioners who are doing all these different modalities to help us access the same thing. Philip Shepard doing his work, or all the different guests that I've had on are basically doing similar things that we're all succeeding at really accessing and living ourselves as bodies, in the language that I use, in this most both primal and, I would say, advanced way, because it's so integrative, it's so relational, and it's so compassionate towards ourselves and others. So I just wanted to acknowledge how much intersectionality there is. Some of us work more hands-on to help people experience that, or some of us work in all kinds of different ways, but I'm just really appreciating the common ground, and it's very heartening for me. Yeah.
Then we are on the same level there also, because
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like I'm holding hands with all these people all around the world that are doing the work to help lift humanity in small little pockets, but it's everywhere and it's growing.
Yeah. Well, it has to, because otherwise we're not going to make it.
Yeah, there is one thing that I try to keep in mind these days. It's not always easy, but change is never easy. And beginning of big change, we see it on individual levels, and I assume that we'll also see it on a global level, is that when change first starts, we go through a stage of confusion, disorientation, difficulty, because we don't know what these pieces are that are starting to move. So I'm hoping that that's what's happening, that globally now we're going through this stage of confusion, disorientation, what's going on, to figure out all the pieces that needs to come into place for us to move as collective in the direction that will actually make it. So
It is really interesting, though, how, as you're saying, all institutions and paradigms are shifting, one of which is the longstanding spiritual model, and I would even say a much more masculine or patriarchal model that is more about transcendence. The spiritual model has been about leaving the body, transcending it, connecting to the cosmos, which a lot of people view as more masculine, patriarchal. My dear friend, who was also a guest on the podcast, Mona Wind, born and raised in an Indian village and is a spiritual teacher. And we talk a lot about the patriarchal lineage of her country, her motherland, and how even this is shifting, and how integral the body needs to be and necessarily is, just like you so beautifully described, as this new way forward in this more feminine understanding of life, love, and I would say the pursuit of happiness.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And this is also very interesting because besides the clinic, we have two other companies, Neurogenic Integration, which is basically Alex, Dave, and me trying to move this onto a more accessible way of teaching tremoring. And then we also have a company called Integrated Human, where we are absolutely using TRE or tremoring and body work together with the mind. So you can put things in a frame, you work through the body. We usually say we work up and down.
Yes.
So you get both direction and you get an integration of these things, because understanding is essential, but understanding alone is dead.
Yes.
It's flat. It has no energy. It has no movement. It has no juice, if you want to call it. It has no life. And moving this through the body gives it life. That's the power of the feminine. That's the mother. Yeah, you need both in order to create, to become whole. There's no way around it.
Couldn't agree with you more.
And often when you're totally in your mind in terms of spirituality, it's almost like spiritual escapism, because you ignore the body so much that you lose all the wisdom it can share with you. You run away from the lessons instead of diving into them. If you look at pain, for example, of course, as a chiropractor, I deal a lot with pain. My husband has this beautiful saying. He says, choose your pain. And I love it because there will be pain, period. Nobody escapes it. Nobody. There will be pain. There will be trauma. So choose how you deal with it. Do you want to look away and put your head in the sand and not acknowledge it and just run? And you'll get a new lesson, if you want to call it that, from a different point of view to try to, well, if you don't want to look at it, if I show it this way, how can life show it in another way? So you may be able to look at it. So why not just look at it right away? And yes, that's also painful, but at least then you're choosing it. And the suffering becomes less because you are going into it with conscious awareness. It requires courage, but you at least have a chance to grow as a human being.
I think a lot of the reason, though, that people avoid it is because they don't necessarily have the resource of
Absolutely.
this sensational consciousness or body capacity that we're talking about. And so the thinking is so circular and so obsessive, so insidious, and not generative in the way we've been taught to quote unquote process,
Yeah.
that it gets overwhelming too quickly for most people, in my both personal and professional observation. So it's easier to avoid it because there's a sense of, I don't have the tools, I don't have the capacity, I don't have the nervous system support to really confront this pain. So I'm just going to avoid it until it turns into a disease or it turns into chronic body pain or whatever it may be.
That's exactly what society is teaching us to do.
Yes.
Because people don't know that there are tools. They don't know
Yes.
that there is an other option. We're all taught, take the pill, avoid, ignore, run away from, just keep going because that's what society is demanding of you. You are constantly being taught to put all of the signals your body is giving you off to the side.
Yeah.
And it's not about becoming a hypochondriac. That's not what I'm saying. It's a difference between that and awareness. But we're not taught awareness. We're taught constant unawareness. We're constantly being dug deeper and deeper and deeper. We never, ever have had a society where minutes count. We're not talking, oh, now it's the season to harvest, or now it's the season to sow, or now it's the season for cut the grass, or whatever it is. We're not living in the rhythm that nature is providing. We're living in a rhythm that a watch is providing. And everything is just lined up to the minute. So it's very difficult to have time. It's very difficult to go inward and constantly being drawn out into a digital affecting the world that doesn't even exist.
Yes, and you're raising this phenomenon of the less we live on the land and with the land, the more likely we are to be dissociated from ourselves as bodies.
A while ago, I was saying, oh, in a few years, we'll just cut here.
Yeah.
We'll just put the brain and connect it to some electric charges, and you'll be yourself on the computer, and you don't need to worry about having a body.
There's lots of folks who actually would prefer that. And honestly, sometimes I can understand that. As much as I love and am passionate about incarnate experience, I suffer from it a lot, as you were saying. It's been a really difficult ride for me because of all the injuries I've had. Which brings up another question I wanted to ask you, which is, the fidelity or infidelity of scar tissue and how much more difficult it is to uninhibit tissue that has been injured. And when there's scar tissue, nerves move through it differently. Nervous signals move through scar tissue differently, that those tremors can be, again, inhibited because of the protectiveness that extra tissue, those fibroblasts provide for the body in order to help splint and protect the body. But then, of course, they get excessive and so compensatory that they end up being really problematic for the freedom of a body and even its healing capacity. So I'd love to hear what you know about that as a chiropractor and also as a TRE expert. What's your view on scar tissue?
Scar tissue is very interesting, both in terms of the restrictions, but also in terms of how it potentially influences fascia. And
Yeah.
fascia has become a lot more interesting. We know more about it now than we did before in terms of how it's a huge electrical system and transmits signals way faster than the nervous system does.
Yes.
So we do see that the fascia releases, you know how I talked about you have the tremors that are
Yeah.
kind of a little finer. They can go in different frequencies. Some of them are very fine. Sometimes they're so fine that it feels like a mobile phone in your pocket. You can barely see it, but you can feel it. And sometimes they are bigger. Sometimes they can be quite high amplitude.
And even jerky and
Yeah.
almost, you could say, spastic, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where we get into self-regulation and awareness and breathing and all of these things. But in terms of injuries, I can talk a little bit about myself. Half a year ago, I had a resurfacing surgery of my hip. And it's been an interesting ride because, of course, this has been going on way longer than I was aware of. And I was actually just watching a video of myself tremoring that Alex and I had been making for a course, a video course that we were making. And I could see how restricted my ability to move was. So, of course, we don't encourage to tremor, to force, or to allow the tremors to amplify pain. So there we ask people to fall back a little bit. But what we often see is that the body will tremor the opposite side. And if you allow that to happen in injuries like now after the surgery, I have not, of course, been able to tremor. I tremored for the first time full, no folding back on Tuesday. It was awesome. It was so wonderful to feel that my body was connected again. But before that, I've only been able to tremor on my left side, non-surgical side. And it seems like that has been really helping because we have two hemispheres and you have the corpus callosum going between the two to integrate and communicate. So if you have an injury on one side, you can actually train the opposite side and gain a tiny little benefit from that just because of the cross on the injured side. So we're assuming that there is something similar going on, that sometimes if there is a trauma or an injury that is associated, either like a trauma being held in one area of the body, as an injury also can, of course, be in an area of the body. If the other side gets to tremor and do its own thing, the injured or side of the body that is holding trauma will, after a while, start to come online. It's very, very interesting.
Yes, I've found that in body work too, that if somebody has a shoulder injury, particularly if they've been guarding it for a long time and they're new to working with me, I'll work on the opposite shoulder and it will start to have healing benefit to the other, partially on a physical level because of what you're describing. And I also think that I'll speak for myself, I get so habituated to my restrictions and my pain or injuries that I expect them to be that way. So if I get to experience one shoulder is going, oh, it can actually be like this, I think that's also informative enough to the other shoulder. And also there's more trust there and there begins to be this new re-education of how it is possible to move again and actually remember what that original capacity is.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So I want to talk a bit too about, we've talked about how animals naturally tremor. And I've also been thinking about how tribal societies will incorporate, you could call tremoring into ritualistic dance, for example, which isn't necessarily the same thing because it can be very stylized or even mimicked. So everybody's doing the same thing. So there may or may not be the freedom that the body needs to fully express itself in this nuanced and individual way that we spoke about, even idiosyncratic way that is so informed by that deep primal force, as you so beautifully described. And yet, in, for example, shamanic dance, where there is the intention to fully release and be, some people would call it possessed, for
Mm.
example, there's interesting parallels there, though, of what happens if you give over your cognitive mind so that you can allow the body to move. And because it's so foreign to most and many cultures in the world, at least modern cultures, that it can seem like possession, attribution of the devil and of spirits and of all this stuff, which I'm not saying is not also possible. But I do think that's a really interesting thing, how similar, even speaking in tongues, you could say, if one were to verbalize tremoring, if we were to vocalize it, that there can be all kinds of really interesting language and insight, as well as emotion, unearthed and flowing and moving and, yeah, releasing.
Yes.
Curious if you experience that or see that a lot with your students and within yourself, because of course, as the body is allowed to move and be untamed, I love that you said that word, there is going to be emotion. The flesh and emotion are so inextricably related. And of course, that's what we're also been taught to control. Emotion can be so overwhelming to we mere mortals. So, what said a bunch of stuff, but I'm curious wherever you want to go with any of that. I'd love to hear it.
We could go in a couple of directions there, but let's start with the emotional part first, because that's really something that I'm very passionate about. If you look on, I guess, Facebook and Instagram these days, depending on what you're interested in, it has tendency to show up, of course. So I'm interested in this kind of somatic types of work and breath work. And I see a lot of, especially in breath work right now, it's really a hot thing to do, apparently. And there is some of these things that have these enormous emotional and physical releases, like a cathartic type.
Yeah.
And it's promoted as this is what you need to have in order to heal. For me, I look at it, yes, absolutely. In order to heal, you need to feel it to heal it. I truly believe that. However, there is a difference between blowing off steam. Heal. That's two different things. And what I see on a lot of these videos, not all of them, of course, but it's blowing off steam because it's disconnected. They're not really feeling it.
Mm.
Because, in my opinion, if you're going to heal something, you have to integrate it. And in order to integrate it, you really have to feel it. You have to look at it. You have to kind of own it back. I usually say to a lot of my students that when something comes up, a trauma, an old memory, a stress point, whatever it is, something comes up, don't be afraid of it. Look at it, experience it, because it is a treasure. If you imagine a treasure box, pirate treasure box on the bottom of the ocean, and it has a big lock on it, and it has huge chains, and it's holding it down, and all of that energy that you're using to suppress this memory, this experience, no matter how horrible it was, you're spending an enormous amount of energy just pushing that down and holding it away because you don't want to look at it, you don't want to feel it, you don't even want to know what it was. Maybe you don't even remember what it was. but it's still something that you're locking away. You're using so much energy on it. And if we go back to those Instagram enormous releases, blowing off steam is just blowing off some of the fear that you have related to what's really deep down in there. It's not really what's in there. So if you're going to really look at what's in this treasure box, because it becomes a treasure box, but it's my trauma. How can you call that a treasure? It's a treasure because of all the energy, all the potential it holds. So when you start opening this, you don't have to crank it wide open right away and let it all out at once, because that's usually too much. You get overwhelmed. So how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. So you can open this treasure box and look, and you can take out a little bit and allow this to move through your body in a piece that you can handle. And that's where we talk about self-regulation, the art of self-regulation, where you can truly feel something, you can express it and release it. And then I say you release it from the point of view of your heart. When you look at what it is that you're releasing, look at it from your heart. Because at one point in your life, the energy that you're using to hold this down, it served you, it protected you, it gave you something, it was there for a reason. So don't say, oh, I don't want it, and push it away and throw it out with a lot of energy. But hold it, look at it, feel it, and then you let it go and look at it from your heart and have that heart with yourself and with the process of releasing it. And then you can do a little bit at a time, and it becomes this beautiful thing. It includes acceptance, non-judgment, self-forgiveness, self-love, and maybe even gratitude. And then it becomes this really deep, beautiful thing that may involve crying, laughing, it may even involve screaming and a lot of movement. You can really hear the difference when someone is releasing an emotion or trauma in an integrated, heartfelt, heart-connected way compared to someone who is blowing off steam. This is also a very passionate thing for me, because in some of these groups, it's considered, if you don't express this in a very energetic way, you are not a good participant. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
I totally do. It's not dissimilar to many things, one of which is like yoga people, the bendier you are, is if you're more embodied, the more flexible you are, which of course is ridiculous. I've seen lots of yogic people who are barely feeling or not feeling their bodies at all. So I totally agree with you. As I was listening to you, I was thinking, how do we know we felt something and we are truly feeling? So that's one thing that your words had me curious about. And I was also so appreciating this sense that first of all, I was captivated by this image, and I was imagining myself at the bottom of the ocean and pulling it. And it made me think about, at least in Western industrialized capitalist culture, we think more is more. You know, more noise, more tears, more rage, more bigger jewels. That's what makes us valuable and successful, rather than maybe it's a really small jewel that's been particularly quiet in your system, but that it's held like a diamond, the whole force of the inner earth in it. And you might shed 3 tears over its final, at last, beholding it in this really bodyful way and heartful way, as you've described. And I love how generous and reverent your description is, rather than it being, as you say, about clicks and drama and performance.
exactly. I was about to use that word, but I think it's more challenging because it requires more to truly feel it than it requires to just scream.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. How do we truly feel something? And it is certainly, as with everything, I'm sure you'll agree, the body is key. And you're saying the heart is key, but the heart is the body and the body is the heart. I have noticed a lot. I learned a lot from Philip Shepard's work. I don't know if you're familiar with his work yet, but the lower our consciousness goes in our body, particularly all the way to the pelvic floor, the more our heart, emotion, our souls, spirits, minds are all integrated into one wholeness. And I love that. I love this. I love this conversation.
Me too.
I do have a few more questions. You
Yeah.
ready?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm having to pick because there's several things I wanted to ask you about. One is this understanding that some of us have that the body is the subconscious, that it actually is, not just reflects it, but actually is. And I'm not a scientist and don't want to be, but you are much more of one than I am. And I'm wondering what
Excellent.
all the better. I'm wondering what your understanding is of how we quote unquote store memory and store trauma in the body as bodies. What is the current understanding? Because I'm not out there reading the research and the literature and the articles about it. I just have always known this to be true and experienced it and observed it over and over and over again. But what is your understanding of that?
Well, it depends on how much neurology we're going to talk about, but we have it's kind of an outdated model, but it makes it a little easier to understand. Do you know the model of the triune brain? If you look at the brain and you divide it in two and you look on the inside, the outer layer is the gray matter, the neocortex, the new brain, where we as humans have a tendency to, I get a little sarcastic here maybe, but we really are very proud of this neocortex of ours. And I'm thinking, well, look around. What are we? Why are we so proud of it? But okay, that's where our philosophy, our art, our science, our logic, our reasoning, our fantasy, our conscious mind is there. Our decision to, I'm going to move from A to B. I'm going to take the cup off the shelf. I'm going to, all the conscious movements and things that you do lives in that part of the brain. And underneath it, we have the limbic system, which is called the mammalian brain. It's older, and it has, you can call it the emotional brain. So on top, you have the thinking brain. In the middle, you have the emotional brain. And then underneath the emotional brain, we have the reptilian brain, or I like to call it the body brain. And that's the oldest part of your brain. It controls everything in your body. And if you can just think about that for a moment, how amazing just that is. Because there are bazillion little processes going on in your body at every second. It's overwhelming. Your autonomic system has complete control over all of this constantly. The amount of information it can handle is just insane. Let's see if I can remember this. I think the conscious brain can handle something like 40 to 50 bits of information per second, but the autonomic system handles something like 11 million bits per second. It's I don't know if the numbers are 100% correct, but it's something in that range. And so it's just overwhelming.
And what about the heart? According to HeartMath, which is a whole other topic, doesn't the heart process even more information or not?
The heart doesn't process information, it has its own brain. It has its own memory, both long-term and short-term, and the heart sends more information to the brain than it receives from the brain. And it produces the largest magnetic field of the body. The magnetic field of the heart is 5,000 times larger than that of the brain. The electrical field of the heart, I think, is 60 times that of the brain. The magnetic field of the heart reaches like 3 feet outside of you, all around you. It's amazing. So the power of the heart is overwhelming. It helps you with strategic thinking. To be connected with your heart is very smart. It's the best way I can put it.
Yeah, it makes me think all about my work with spatial relationship and peripersonal space and how much the heart is what is informing us of how we feel in relation to bodies around us, what angles they're standing, which direction we're facing, all of those things. Oof, we might have to do a part 2, Siv.
Could be that you could come and give a workshop on our,
Love to.
you
Love
know,
to.
we could talk about that.
And that can be either understand touch in the body from my perspective of working for so long. I'd love to give you a session, by the way, that'll happen at some point. But also, my main thing is personal geometry and how to give language to the body. And the language of spatial relationship is a way to externalize our body maps so that we can access everything this subconscious mind knows as a body in seconds or minutes. It's really quick.
Hearing you talk, I'm thinking it would be so interesting to hear your completely unfiltered, what you could read from someone tremoring.
Yeah.
That would be so interesting because, like we get stuck in our patterns. So
Yeah.
you kind of look for the same things very often. Sometimes you have to have a new viewpoint, and it would be so fascinating to actually hear and what do you see when you watch this organism? Like Dave, he always calls the body the organism because it contains more than the body. But when you watch these movements, when you watch what the nervous system is doing in the body, what would you observe? How would you interpret what you see? What would you look for? What would you observe as a restriction, and how would you approach it? That would be very, very interesting.
Well, it would depend on whether or not I was able to touch that body or not. I'm feeling all the time with any body I'm working with, and I imagine you're doing this too, particularly as a network chiropractor, but I can feel what's not moving that could move.
Yeah.
And I mean minute ways, so I can feel.
I think you're much better because I don't practice network chiropractic anymore. Or, well, that's a long story, but
Yeah.
I think now I'm just talking on top of my head here, but we do interventions with people when we watch a body tremor and we see that, there is a restriction here, or the tremors is trying to move into a certain direction, but it can't get through, for example, the diaphragm, or it can't get through the throat, two big obstacle ports. And then we could either move a limb, or sometimes I will perform an adjustment, or sometimes we restrict the tremors in one area, or move the body around, put a pillow somewhere. We do different things in order to change or help the body discover a new path for the tremor. Sure, you would have some brilliant insights that actually could improve the.
For sure. Yeah.
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 Oh,
I'm looking at bodies all the time. Everywhere I go, I'm constantly looking at bodies, their restrictions, their inhibitions, physically, but also energetically, emotionally, psychologically, culturally. Yeah. I would love that. Absolutely love that.
It could be very interesting because we are trying to develop TRE, and TRE has become kind of stuck in a framework. That's why Dave contacted Alex and me to try to break out of that framework and try to open it up so that we could actually incorporate this with other therapies. And we are open to absolutely everything, the full range.
I don't know if you know that I'm also a sexologist, so that would be a particular interest of mine. For example, I just went to a sex therapist conference in Las Vegas a month ago, and I was shocked at how little conversation there was about the body itself and the body's capacity to experience pleasure, for example, or to heal trauma. And I know for sure that the body has so much more capacity to experience full body energy, touch, movement, sensory engagement, emotional, all that, which of course you know. I mean, I know that's about you. I knew that when I just saw your picture, which is your point. And if all that neurology can't even move through the body and there isn't that capacity for that opening, the allowance of all that opening, and as you say, untamed, you could call it abandon, but it's actually the opposite of abandon, in my view, where you're actually being there rather than leaving it, you know, which is what we've been talking about for the last hour and a half.
Now the body to experience ecstasy
Yeah.
is
And
like,
the pain that can be in the way of doing that, as you were speaking so beautifully about being with the pain and the trauma and the memories and the association and the freeze and the fear and all that stuff, and how that will lock up. Even, for example, I remember distinctly when I was doing TRE, at one point my hips started to really buck in a very thrusty kind of way that was so obviously sexual. And most people would not allow that kind of movement, particularly in a group space, because it is so obviously sexual. And whether that's specifically from sexual trauma or it's held libido or it's just a pelvic movement that is trying to allow a healing to the sacral torque or whatever it is, as you so wonderfully said, it doesn't fucking matter which one it is. The body knows that it needs to do that for whatever reason. And because of social conditioning, if you're not allowed to let your pelvis thrust or buck or move, either because it brings up sexual feelings or memories, negative or positive, then that is going to restrict, obviously, that whole cascade of movement. So, anyway, what do you think?
very, very interesting. Very interesting. I on purpose do not talk about, in groups anyway, talk about the energy moving through the body being sexual in any way, because I feel in a group that would, at least here in the setting that we have, it would close people down. But I do talk about, I'm sure you're familiar with Kundalini,
Yeah.
because some of the exercises that we have in TRE, you can do on the wall. And you can really get energy moving. I love standing on the wall moving, because then you really get the energy moving from your pelvic floor up. And it is definitely orgasmic in character. And if you get it going, I'm standing like that and pulling it up. And it's just, oh, it's so powerful. It's so beautiful. And I realized I had to start talking about this because I could see it happening to the people on the floor and they had no idea what was going on.
But that's because people are associating life force with sex.
Exactly.
And I was going to ask you actually about what is the difference between tremors and kriyas?
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Well, I am not sure, because there is an overlap of flow there, and that overlap is kind of subtle. The people that I live in a tiny little town. People here are not, um,
Progressive?
yeah. In the company that we have called Integrated Human, we are really bringing personal work to this town. And it's a curious experience because they don't have the tools. They don't even know that it exists. So for me to talk about Kundalini, I have to use the word life force.
Yeah.
Like when they are on the floor and they're deep in their bodies, I can talk. That's why I trained in hypnotherapy, because I realized I need to learn to speak to the subconscious mind. I need to learn breath work so I can help them regulate. So I have a better understanding of breath, so I can help them regulate what is going on in the body with self-regulation, basically using the breath. And the deeper we were digging into this, the more I realized, oh my God, energy is starting to move through these people and they don't even know what it is. So we were starting to have to talk about it. And now I talk about, okay, especially when we're on the wall, contract your pelvic floor, try to pull the energy up and try to get that energy moving in their bodies. And it's doing it. They're going. And I just love it. It's so different working here than going to, like, I don't know, a big conference somewhere or a setting where you have people that are coming because they want to develop themselves. The people that come to me here locally come to me because they want to get rid of the chronic pain.
Yeah.
Different.
I hope you're making a little documentary about this. I would love to see Norwegian villagers, experiencing this
Oh,
work.
they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful, these people, you wouldn't know. And their lives are changing and they are going, oh my God.
I bet their sex lives are changing too.
It could very well be. I haven't asked. But I know their relationships with their husbands are, because here we go again. They're mostly women. Oh,
Yeah.
Anyway.
So back to the subconscious. Anything else you want to add about storing memory?
Yeah, just that in terms of your body being your subconscious mind is the more patients I treat, and it's been, I don't know, 20,000 of them, something like that now. The more I understand is one thing if you slip on the ice and you injure yourself, okay. But a lot of the stuff that I'm sure this is the same for you, when they're coming in with inflammations, tendinitises, pain, headaches, tension types pain. For me now, I'm always thinking it's autonomic, it's autonomic. Of course, it's chemical also in terms of we're being poisoned from the world that we're living in, and that's a whole other topic. And of course, maybe the lack of movement plays a huge role here also. But if we just put those two things to the side, because that's a different theme altogether, the fact that the autonomic nervous system has such a big overview of what's going on in your body at all times. Of course, when we have automated thinking processes, we react out of old traumas, old stresses, limiting beliefs, social constructs, meta programs, all of this that is installed in our minds at a young age. And we need them because otherwise we don't survive. We are the only mammals who need this long childhood in order to become a fully functional member of society. So we need a lot of those meta programs in order to survive. But there is a lot of room for improvement. Let's put it that way. So sometimes you kind of need to change them in order to move forward in your life. And some of them you need to get rid of altogether. So when these programs are then stored in the automatic part of our nervous system, because we need to automatically understand the basic functions of our society and our family structures, in order to move on and move out of that, we need to address that in the autonomic nervous system, because that's where it lives. So I don't know if I sailed off topic here a little bit, but yeah, I truly believe that the autonomic nervous system or the subconscious mind, that the body is a representation of that. I'm kind of moving in the direction that the body is the subconscious mind.
Yeah, this does get into a longer conversation for another time, but it brings up body maps, which I work with a lot in personal geometry, the work that I do. And the complexity of these maps that are constantly generating, regenerating, reconfiguring, crossing each other, conflating, diverging, because some of them are about physical relationships, some of them are about emotional, associative, social relationship, even picking up a certain cup that was your grandmother's, even though it's the same gesture of another cup, is going to have a different, in my view, kind of body map, that meaning cascade, neurological or fascial cascade, perhaps.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating stuff. And just by seeing your grandmother's cup is going to trigger potentially a whole different set of obviously associations and feelings, and almost in a Proustian kind of way. There's such complexity going on, as you said. I mean, those billions of bits of information, if we call them information, experience that our autonomic system, our body beings are constantly processing is just, it's tremendous. It's awe-inspiring. It is as galactic as looking up at the sky at night. Speaking of which, I do have a couple other things I want to ask you about, one of which is bees. I want to hear about bees.
Oh, you want to hear about bees? Okay.
When I think about information processing and thousands of beings as part of a social self, I would love to what you know about bees and how bees are related to all of this business we're discussing today.
Oh my, that was an unexpected angle.
No, well, we could talk about Parkinson's too, which I also want to talk about because my mother had it and ultimately died of it. So you choose which direction or both.
Well, we still have to talk about the topic of shamanic shaking that we haven't talked
Oh,
about
gee.
yet.
Okay.
Well, I do keep bees. What's your question in relationship to that?
It's about the intelligence of parts of a society being part of the whole. My poetic mind is thinking about bees as neurological activity. But
Okay.
the body is the whole hive. The single body is the hive itself, or this society of thousands of beings part of this, and that they're going out and coming back in and going out and coming back in and bringing with it pollen and information about where to go. And they've got their little bee dances. And I know almost nothing about bees, but there's so much information that is passing within and between these little bodies that are interacting with the world, finding particular flowers and pollens and all the stuff that they do to produce the food that we enjoy, and need. So that might be too far a reach for this conversation. I don't know, but just curious what you think about that.
I haven't really thought about it in those terms. They are these golden, beautiful beings. But I really don't know exactly how to go down that road in terms of relating it to a body. The society of bees are very complex and it's very interesting. But they also act as individuals. They've even found out that bees can get traumatized. And they have memory of this. They did a study, which was, I found, mind-blowing, where they put predator wasp in a flower that was a favorite of bees. And bees came there and got attacked by the wasp. The same individual bee then wouldn't go back to those flowers. And they found exactly how they did this, I don't know, but they found a way to rehabilitate the bee so it would overcome the trauma of being attacked by this wasp and would then return to these types of flowers. It's incredible. They do recognize individual faces.
Really?
Yes, they do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've even had experience. I'm extremely fortunate. I live in a beautiful forested area and I can just walk directly out in the forest from my house. And I was walking in one of the pathways here and it was so strange. It was kind of like a little bit of a wide area. And this one bee, and I'm the only beekeeper in my surroundings, so I know that this was my bee. It was coming down this path between the trees, and I was going up, and it came and we met, and it stopped right in front of me about this far away. And I swear, we connected. And I felt this recognition. It was like, oh, it's you. And it just moved on. But it stopped like right in front of me. It's so amazing. Oh yeah, I have a deep love relationship to my bees.
Oh, I love it. We humans are so stupid that we think other species are stupid.
Oh, it's the most arrogant thing. That's why I'm laughing.
But
Fantastic neocortex that we like to brag so much about.
drives me crazy.
We don't understand other types of intelligence.
Yeah.
We don't understand. We think we are the only ones who have language. No, every species have their own language. I'm also a dog trainer, and sometimes when I have whole courses for people and they can't get the dog to do what they want to do, and I play a little bit with people and say, well, who's got the biggest brains here? It's your problem because you're not able to communicate to the dog what you want. Look at your dog. He or she obviously is trying to understand what you are trying to communicate. Sometimes I think it's a miracle that they understand what we want because we are communicating on our terms only. I think sometimes dogs are way smarter because they actually understand human language and their own.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's just go for a moment or two into this is such a kind of buzzkill, but
Uh-oh.
phenomenon of Parkinson's, because
Yeah.
now here obviously is a disease that either can go into tremoring or it can go into freeze and extreme stillness, which was more my mother's kind, though when she was unmedicated, she would tend towards more tremoring. And I personally have seriously considered that Parkinson's, I definitely think also has to do with the nerves being shot for whatever reason, like they become unmyelinated. That's my completely uninformed guess, but that there is something that goes wrong with myelination, either due to chemical toxicity or a variety of different environmental factors. But I also have wondered and observed whether or not Parkinson's can also be closely related to unresolved trauma that has been kept so still, so frozen, so encapsulated that at some point the nervous system can no longer regulate itself and begins this spontaneous and uncontrollable tremoring. And I wonder what you think about that and whether you think I'm full of shit or you think there's something in what I'm saying just from my own subjective observation.
Well, first one thing I have to say is that I'm far from being an expert on Parkinson.
Mhm.
I
Makes
don't
two of us. Yeah.
I don't think that I'm qualified to do a huge analysis here. But I do believe that the tremoring that you see with Parkinson's is related, as far as I understand, to a neurological deficiency rather than a natural, or not natural, that would be wrong. It's natural for the disease process to produce that symptom, but it's not the same as the non-pathological tremoring that we're talking about in TRE. So that's two very distinct things. The type of Parkinson's tremoring is not what we see in TRE. Very, very big difference. Have the, what is it? They call it the pill rolling, but then shaking of the hands a lot. And we see a whole different tremoring pattern. So that's one thing. So I'm not sure if Parkinson's is the tremoring that you see in Parkinson's, which is a pathological type of tremoring, that has anything to do with the release of trauma. I wouldn't know for sure. It could be maybe a different pathway for it, but as far as my understanding, it's not related. If Parkinson's comes from unreleased trauma, could very well be. I'm currently just starting to learn about binaural beats. Are you familiar with
Learning about what?
binaural beats?
Mm-mm.
Binaural beats. Okay. Or let me rephrase that a little bit. I'm starting to learn about the effect of sound on your nervous system. There is this guy, his name is Dr. Jeffrey Thompson. He's in Carlsbad, California. He's been pioneering the effect of sound waves on correcting brain waves that are lacking. Different states of your brain has different brain waves, and different areas of your brain has different types of brain waves, and all of this needs to function together in concert. And if some areas of your brain doesn't have well-developed brainwave activity in that, it can cause neurological problems. According to him, every single neurological disease that you can name is basically a disturbance in brainwaves. And his work is truly amazing, where he's been using sound in different ways to correct. Parkinson's is one of them, but ADHD, Alzheimer's, he's had some really astounding results with this. Autism, it's amazing. I'm just in the beginning phases of learning around this. And I found that really interesting, because then you can see, okay, what is it that knocks your nervous system out of balance in that way? Hard to say when it comes to ADHD and, well, autism, I guess it's come so early in life that it's hard to know. But all of these diseases we see a huge, huge increase in,
Yes.
globally. So there is something that is triggering it.
Yeah.
Maybe also off on a tangent a little bit, but if you're interested to see, it is fascinating. It is beautiful. I love it.
We'll put the link in the show notes. And this is a good time to also ask you what else you are offering right now. What are you promoting? What would you like us to include about your work in the show notes?
Oh, I just would really love to share this natural, powerful force of nature that just lives in all of us that you can access fairly easily and use for yourself to help you heal. So what we are doing in Neurogenic Integration, we would like to offer 50% off on our 2 memberships. One of them is a monthly and one of them is a yearly. And we'll offer a 50% discount on both of them. And what that includes is a video foundations course where we basically show you how to trigger the tremors in your own body. It's just a step-by-step instructional on how to do it. We also talk about self-regulation, what it is, how you do it, what it means, why it's important. We talk about titration, to do a little bit at a time, not to eat the whole elephant at once and all of that stuff. And then the monthly and the yearly membership includes also sessions. There are several sessions a week where you get to have sessions with really good theory instructors that come with their perspectives on how you combine theory with Feldenkrais, with breathing, with different somatic tapping. We're going to have a workshop on that. We just had a workshop yesterday on pendiculation. He was from Australia, so that was in the middle of the night for me, so I didn't get a part of it. But these are TRE providers, trainers that have vast experience and huge knowledge, and you get access to it. So we have, I think, sessions several times a week. They're all online, so you can access from all over the world.
Amazing. Amazing. And I imagine you also do in-person workshops as well in Norway, or?
Yes, can do. At least Alex is doing it, but I'm doing it also. He's doing most of that. I'm a little too busy at the moment for that, but I'm planning on putting it off there. So yes, that is also available. And we have workshops that are, most of them so far has also been a part of the membership. So it's really, really cool. It's really cool.
That's fantastic. I have 2 more questions I ask everyone, which are, how would you define embodiment?
For me, that would be presence. Maybe a combination of presence and awareness. That you are present in and aware of your body. And when you are fully, at least this is my personal experience and belief, then when you're fully aware, fully present, you drop into nothingness and everythingness. And you own all of that. To me, is the complete embodiment. You are here, now, in this, but everything.
Do you think you can be present without being aware, or aware without being present?
Good question. I think presence can bring awareness. I'm not sure if they can exist separately, but I think if you have one, it can bring you the other.
Love it.
I generally always start my meditations by going into my body fully and completely.
How do you do
deeper
that?
I drop into my body, the deeper I go in my meditation. I do it by awareness, becoming aware. First, I become aware of my breath because that's very easy to connect to. And then I become aware of any tension or restriction that I feel in my body. And I go there and I breathe into that and I relax it. And then I just feel the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. There can be many layers sometimes. But me, the deepest meditation is the deepest relaxation and the deepest presence. Then there is that point where your body doesn't exist. Or, yeah, that's not quite the word. Maybe it's more like your body has no boundary.
Mm. I love that distinction. And what do you enjoy most about being your particular body?
I think some of the stuff that I enjoy the most is being able to experience bliss or energy moving through my body. Being able to feel my heart just explode with joy at an experience. Mostly it comes from experiences in nature, experience with other human beings, experiencing themselves on a really deep level. To be able to facilitate that is something I'm hugely grateful about, and I feel that in my own body. And to feel that power of energy, of frequency moving through with, if it's TRE or if it's breath work or if it's meditation, that just brings that bliss. It's a very physical experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be anywhere in the body, depending on how you direct it.
I can relate to that. I recognize that, at least my own breath. Yeah. Thank you so much, Siv. I absolutely loved being with you. What a kindred spirit and body. And it was really a pleasure to have this conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to having met you. Oh my, we could talk for a long time, I think.
All right. Well, you know where to find me now, and I know where to find you.
That's very true.
I could give you a big, heartful, bodyful hug right now.
Oh, I'm receiving it. It's coming right back to you.
Thank you. Well, it will actually happen in the flesh one of these days. So thank you again.
I'm thinking that too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking around until the end. We hope that means you enjoyed today's episode. If so, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could share it with a friend, leave a review, and rate the podcast. It really helps us reach more people in our mission to expand the global understanding and experience of body brilliance. Our events and content remain free in our effort to expand the meaning of intelligence, but we do gratefully accept donations to help with our podcast's operating costs. You can find the link in our show notes. And while you're there, check out all the resources, gifts, definitions, photos, events, and tools we've included to help you dive deeper into today's topics. You can also visit www.thebrilliantbodypodcast.com for a complete list of episodes, body meditations, and many more brilliant things. And if you're curious to explore more ways I help bodies to reclaim their brilliance, visit my website at www.alimezey.com. And lastly, a huge hearty thank you to my co-producer and editor, the brilliant Florence Popoff, and to Blair, Mr. One-Man Band Wilson, for our theme music. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, stay loving, and reclaim your brilliant body.